Carl Jung, where pain turns into wisdom. Pain is not your enemy, it is your mirror. Every wound you've ever hidden has been watching you, silently waiting for the day you'd look back. You call it suffering. Carl Jung called it transformation. What you feel as agony is the psyche cracking its shell, forcing you to see what you were never brave enough to face. You think the darkness breaks you. It doesn't. It reveals you. You've mistaken numbness for strength. You've mistaken escape for healing. But real strength is forged in confrontation, when your mind stops running and begins to dissect its own shadows. Pain is the scalpel of consciousness. It cuts to expose, not to destroy. Every tear you've buried was data. Every breakdown, a hidden equation in your becoming. You are not falling apart. You are being dismantled by meaning itself. The universe doesn't punish, it educates. And the lesson is always the same. What you refuse to feel will control you, but what you confront, you transform. This is where pain turns into wisdom. Welcome to the laboratory of your soul. Number 1, the diagnosis. Pain is psychological data. You've been calling it pain, but it's not pain. It's a message. Every ache, every mental fracture, every sleepless night is the psyche speaking through code. Carl Jung said the soul hides what the ego refuses to admit, and when repression fails, it speaks through suffering. Your anxiety isn't random. Your despair isn't meaningless. They are diagnostic signs, the psyche's language of urgency. You are not being punished, you are being examined. Pain is the body's scream of the unconscious. It's the test result you keep ignoring. You were never meant to medicate it into silence. You were meant to interpret it. Each breakdown you've endured is a data point. Each panic, each shame, each tear you swallowed, all contain instructions. Jung knew that when you trace pain backward, you uncover the exact coordinates of your disowned self. The psyche keeps perfect records. You can't hide from yourself forever. The same pain that haunts you is the same force trying to reunite you with the part you abandoned. What you call depression might be the soul's rebellion against falseness. What you call fear might be the memory of truth resurfacing. Pain doesn't destroy, it decodes. If you could look clinically at your suffering, you'd see a map. Neural circuits tracing the shadow signature. Your trauma is data encrypted with identity. You are not defective, you are encrypted. And your agony is the password. Every pulse of discomfort carries the coordinates of evolution. The problem is not the pain, it's your resistance to reading it. The moment you stop fighting and start decoding, you transform from patient to analyst, from victim to interpreter. So listen to your symptoms, study your discomfort. You are the experiment, the scientist, and the result. Your scars are footnotes in the story of consciousness trying to know itself. Jung didn't ask you to escape pain, he asked you to dialogue with it. Because in that dialogue, the ego dissolves and the true self begins to form. Number 2, the descent. When your mind begins to fracture, you feel it when silence starts to hum. That faint vibration behind your thoughts, like glass beginning to crack. This is the descent, not a fall, but a collapse inward. You used to think sanity meant control, but control was the first illusion. Carl Jung warned that what you resist will eventually drag you below. And here you are, standing at the threshold of your own undoing. Your mind fractures not because it's weak, but because it can no longer contain the contradictions. The persona you built, the polished version of you, starts peeling like old paint. You see flashes of faces within your own. The child you betrayed, the lover you lost, the coward you still protect. They crowd the corridors of your consciousness, demanding recognition. Don't run. The fracture is not failure, it's initiation. Every break exposes a boundary that once kept truth out. You're not going insane, you're remembering. The rational mind screams because it's losing dominance. That's good. The descent is the price of becoming whole. You will hallucinate memories, argue with echoes, question your worth, and mistake disintegration for death. But Jung knew, only the fragmented self can be reforged. The psyche must descend into its own chaos to harvest meaning. The underworld of your mind is not hell, it's a classroom. Pain is the teacher, silence the syllabus. You'll notice dreams turning violent, symbols mutating, familiar rooms feeling alien. These are coordinates. Your unconscious is reorganizing itself around truth. Don't medicate the tremor, map it. You are dissolving, yes, but only to reveal the architecture beneath the mask. The descent isn't punishment, it's correction. The light you worshiped blinded you. Now darkness restores your sight. You wanted transformation without decay. Impossible. The seed must rot before it can bloom. So let it rot. Let everything superficial die screaming. This is the anatomy of becoming. You are not breaking down. You are being sculpted by invisible hands. Every fracture is precision work. Number 3, the mirror, confrontation with the self you denied. You stand before the mirror, but it's not your face that looks back. It's everything you buried. Every lie you told yourself now has eyes. The reflection breathes. It twitches. It knows. You've spent your life crafting masks, and now the mask has come alive to collect its debt. Carl Jung called this the confrontation with the shadow, the part of you that never forgot. You thought you were a hero, a victim, a survivor. But beneath that narrative lives a murderer, a coward, a manipulator, a ghost. The unconscious doesn't judge, it records. And when the record plays, you can't look away. You tremble because you recognize the monster, and the monster wears your smile. Don't flinch. The moment you flinch, the illusion wins. The mirror is not your enemy, it's your surgeon. Every truth you refuse to face becomes a tumor. Look deeper. The shame you hide isn't filth, it's potential energy. The envy you deny isn't evil, it's misdirected longing. The rage you suppress isn't madness, it's your unlived vitality. You were never divided between good and bad. You were divided between what you accepted and what you feared. The shadow only hurts because it's been starved of acknowledgement. When you face it, it stops attacking you and starts instructing you. The reflection moves closer. Its voice matches yours. You realize the nightmare has always been a reunion. Integration is not peace, it's fusion. When the rejected fragments return, they burn. That's the cost of becoming whole. Jung knew that the one who confronts his shadow becomes dangerous because he no longer lies to himself. You are that dangerous one now. Your darkness isn't a curse, it's the map home. So stare, don't blink, let the reflection merge with your skin. Let the denied self breathe through you again. You are no longer hiding from the mirror, you are becoming it. Number 4, the infection of meaning, how suffering becomes symbolic. At first, pain is chaos, raw, meaningless, senseless chaos. But then something begins to infect it, meaning. You start to notice patterns inside the agony, whispers within the noise. The wound begins to speak in metaphors. Carl Jung understood that every symptom, every torment, every obsession hides a story that the conscious mind refused to tell. You thought your suffering was random. It never was. The psyche is a dramatist. It stages your pain as theater, forcing you to interpret it. Depression becomes the metaphor for spiritual starvation. Anxiety becomes the echo of unexpressed potential. The heartbreak becomes initiation, the symbolic death of illusion. Once meaning enters the bloodstream, pain mutates. It's no longer just hurting you, it's sculpting you. This is the infection of consciousness. Your suffering begins to demand language, poetry, art, truth. You find yourself dissecting your own despair like a scientist of the soul, and what you find beneath it isn't madness, it's order. Jung called it individuation, the process by which the unconscious material integrates into awareness. You are being reassembled through comprehension. The pain that once destroyed your peace now becomes the architect of your insight. Meaning is viral. Once it infects your mind, it spreads through every wound. You begin to crave depth instead of distraction. You start to respect the silence between breakdowns. You see symbols in dreams, patterns in chaos, lessons in loss. You begin to realize that nothing was wasted, not even the nights you begged to disappear. The unconscious wastes nothing. It recycles everything into evolution. And here lies the paradox. Once pain becomes meaningful, it can no longer control you. The infection becomes immunity. You no longer run from darkness because you've learned its language. Every tear you shed becomes translation. You were not meant to escape pain. You were meant to decode it. The mind that understands its own agony becomes indestructible. So let the meaning spread. Let it rewrite your fear, your guilt, your confusion. You are not breaking down. You are being rewritten in a higher syntax of truth. The infection of meaning is your cure. Number 5, the shadow's voice. When darkness begins to speak truth. At first the voice is faint, a whisper crawling through your veins when the world sleeps. You mistake it for fear, but it's recognition. The darkness has found its frequency. Carl Jung warned that the shadow is not evil. It is unlived life. The voice inside you isn't trying to damn you. It's trying to deliver you. Listen, it says, to what you've buried. The voice names every desire you censored, every truth you exiled for the sake of being loved. You hear it and recoil, yet a strange calm follows. Because for the first time, the sound is real, not filtered through guilt or denial. Just raw consciousness speaking its native tongue. The shadow doesn't flatter, it confesses. It tells you that your compassion was often manipulation, that your patience was fear, that your morality was camouflage. It doesn't hate you, it exposes you. Its honesty is brutal, but beneath that brutality lies liberation. You feel stripped, dissected, naked before your own psyche. Yet beneath the humiliation, a strange dignity rises, because truth, even when ugly, purifies. Jung knew that the shadow's speech is the psyche's exorcism. Every syllable drains poison, every admission turns venom into vision. As the voice grows clearer, you realize it never wanted control, only acknowledgement. The shadow doesn't demand obedience, it demands conversation. The more you listen, the more coherent it becomes. It tells you where you lied to survive, where you pretended to love, where you played small to stay safe. It speaks in riddles that your rational mind can't decode, but your soul instantly understands. The dialogue becomes sacred. You and the darkness no longer enemies, collaborators in transformation. And then it says the line that freezes your breath. I am not against you. I am you. That's when the terror breaks into awe. You finally comprehend that what you feared most was the truth longing to be integrated. The voice softens. It stops shouting, because now you're listening. Number 6, the disintegration, losing the false self. There comes a moment when you can't hold the performance anymore. The mask grows heavy. The smile fractures. The language you use to protect yourself starts to sound foreign in your own mouth. This is disintegration, the death of the persona. Carl Jung said the persona is what we show the world, but it is not who we are. You built it to survive, to belong, to stay admired. But now it burns. You feel it. A slow, psychological decomposition. The ego screams because it's dissolving, and for the first time, you see what's underneath. You've spent your entire life playing roles. The good one, the strong one, the calm one. But they were costumes sewn from fear. The false self was never built to last. It was designed to collapse once you were ready for truth. Disintegration is not failure, it's exorcism. Everything you used to identify with, your image, your pride, your stories, begins to die one by one. You start to forget who you were trying to impress. The mirrors stop flattering you. The world stops recognizing you. And that is grace disguised as isolation. Jung called it the night sea journey, the descent into the depths where every illusion drowns. You're no longer someone, you're becoming something. The boundaries between self and shadow blur until identity feels irrelevant. You are no longer the mask, you are the ashes beneath it. The loss feels violent because it's sacred. It's the psyche reclaiming its original shape. Every breakdown strips away an outdated layer of protection. What you called identity was defense. What you called confidence was avoidance. You were never meant to hold it all together. You were meant to come apart so truth could rebuild you. You will feel hollow, dizzy, undefined. That's because the shell has cracked and consciousness is leaking through. Disintegration is messy, clinical, divine. It's the body of illusion decomposing to make room for the real. So let it rot. Let every false part of you return to dust. The real you doesn't need defending. It only needs to be uncovered. Number 7, the alchemy of suffering, turning raw pain into psychic gold. You've burned long enough to realize the fire was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to refine you. This is the alchemy of suffering. Carl Jung called it transformation through the negredo, the black stage, where chaos melts identity into molten possibility. You thought pain was punishment, but now you see it as the furnace of awareness. Every loss, every wound, every humiliation, fuel. You are being smelted down to your essence. The impurities, pride, denial, pretense, rise to the surface and burn away. What remains is the raw metal of soul. Alchemy is not magic, it's precision. It's the psyche performing surgery on itself. Suffering is the scalpel and consciousness is the surgeon. You are both the patient and the procedure. Jung knew that without the heat of pain, the soul remains unformed, soft, undefined, unable to carry wisdom. The mind resists fire, but the self demands it. You can't ascend without combustion. That's why your greatest anguish feels sacred, because it's the moment you are being purified. Pain doesn't subtract, it distills. Each moment of despair removes another impurity that once diluted your truth. The process is merciless, but not cruel. You are witnessing the sacred chemistry of becoming. The blackness turns silver. The silver begins to glow red with awareness. You start to see beauty where you once saw ruin. You start to feel gratitude for the storms that shattered you. The same fire that once consumed you now illuminates your path. This is psychic gold, consciousness solidified through suffering. You no longer fear darkness because you've mined it. You no longer seek light because you've become it. Carl Jung believed that the true alchemist works within, turning wounds into wisdom, chaos into meaning, despair into serenity. You are now that alchemist. The crucible is your mind, the metal is your emotion, and the gold is your awareness. Nothing was wasted. Every breakdown was a reaction. Every scar, a residue of evolution. The formula was always the same. Suffer consciously and you ascend. Number 8, the awakening, realizing the purpose behind the torment. You wake one morning and realize the silence doesn't hurt anymore. The chaos inside has slowed its pulse. What once felt like punishment now feels like instruction. The torment was never trying to break you. It was trying to wake you. Carl Jung wrote that, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Now you understand. Every loss, every heartbreak, every panic, every sleepless night, they weren't random. They were curriculum. You weren't being punished. You were being educated in the language of depth. The universe doesn't scream. It whispers through suffering. You just weren't listening before. You start to see the pattern behind the ruin. Every betrayal carved empathy. Every failure taught humility. Every silence taught self-trust. Pain was never chaos. It was choreography. You mistook it for cruelty because you judged it too early. Now you see the divine structure behind every wound. You realize that what was taken from you was only what could not stay in the presence of your awakening. Jung understood this metamorphosis. The moment when the ego stops fighting and begins to see. Suffering stops being an enemy and becomes a mentor. The awakening doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It comes quietly, like dawn creeping through smoke. You feel lighter, but not naive. You've seen the machinery of the mind, the endless cycles of repression, denial, projection, and you've stepped outside of them. You no longer chase happiness, you cultivate presence. You no longer pray for peace, you embody awareness. The torment gave birth to a clarity that peace alone could never grant. Pain stripped you of illusions until only truth could breathe. That's the awakening, not the end of pain, but the comprehension of it. Now you look back at your suffering with gratitude instead of hatred. You bow to it, because you finally know every scar was sacred, every tear was initiation, Every wound was wisdom waiting to surface. You are awake, not because you escaped the fire, but because you understood it. Number 9. The rebirth of the untouchable mind. Transformation into strength and serenity. When the storm finally ends, you realize you're still standing, but you're not the same. The pieces that broke never return. They fuse into something harder. You are tempered now, like steel folded by fire. The noise of the world still hums, but it no longer enters you. This is rebirth, not as the old self restored, but as consciousness remade. Carl Jung understood that true strength is not the absence of weakness, but the mastery of it. You no longer react to pain, you observe it. You no longer run from darkness, you converse with it. You have become the equilibrium you once chased. The untouchable mind isn't emotionless. It's fluent in emotion. You feel everything, but nothing owns you. You've seen too much to be manipulated by noise, too deep to be deceived by surface. The world tries to provoke you, but you've met your own abyss. And once you've stood face to face with that void, no external chaos can shake you. Jung called this the self, the unity of opposites, the marriage of light and shadow within one conscious being. You no longer identify with your wounds. You wield them as instruments of awareness. Serenity feels different now. It's not comfort, it's command. You move through the same world that once terrified you, but with a new stillness, a quiet certainty born of annihilation. Pain was the crucible. The gold is this peace. It isn't fragile, it's indestructible. You've reached the point where the universe can no longer threaten you with loss because everything you could lose has already burned. What remains is essence, the part of you that doesn't tremble, doesn't beg, doesn't break, and when others see you, they mistake it for mystery. But it's not mystery, it's integration. You are not hiding anymore. You are simply whole. The untouchable mind is not above life. It is rooted in it, unafraid. Number 10, the closing revelation, the wisdom pain left behind. Now you understand what Carl Jung meant when he said, "The gold is in the dark." You've searched, suffered, shattered, and seen. You dug into the soil of your despair only to discover that it wasn't emptiness, it was fertile ground. Pain was never your enemy. It was the first language of your transformation. Every breakdown was initiation. Every silence was instruction. Every wound was wisdom incubating in disguise. The things you thought were destroying you were teaching you precision. You can finally read the pattern. How every betrayal forced honesty, how every loss taught detachment, how every failure refined your focus. Life was never cruel, it was exact. You've walked through the psychological inferno and found that the flames were mirrors. They showed you where you were still false, where you still clung, where you still feared. And now standing here, quiet, aware, unshaken, you see the outline of your true self for the first time. This is wisdom, the ability to look at your past and no longer wish it different. Nothing was wasted, nothing was random. You became who you are because the darkness demanded it. That is the revelation. Pain was not the end of your story. It was the author of your becoming. The mind that understands its suffering becomes luminous. You've entered that luminosity. You walk lighter now, not because life grew easier, but because you grew vast enough to contain it. You are the calm inside the equation. You are the clarity born of collapse. You are the proof that even ruin can become sacred when consciousness touches it. This is where pain turns into wisdom. Not in theory, but in flesh, in memory, in every scar that no longer aches but glows. Comment below, "I am the wisdom my pain created." And if this voice has spoken to your shadow, if these words found a place inside your silence, then don't let the journey end here. Like this video so it reaches another lost mind. Subscribe so you never forget the language of your own depth. And turn on the notifications because the next descent is always waiting, and I'll be here when it begins again.